I go real on accounts, guys are fairly, quite a young age, in their 50s.
Okay, folks, we are going to get started. So welcome to Sensations Magazine, the first century of the American gay rights movement, 1924 to 2024, a research presentation with poetry. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder, along with my partner, Donnie Jokum, of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, which is the space you are in right now. And the Bureau is an independent, all-volunteer queer bookstore that we founded in 2012, and that has been here at the LGBT Community Center since 2014. And today we are being helped by our volunteer, Jeffrey Archer. And as an all-volunteer bookstore, we are dependent on sales and donations to keep this machine going. Today, we're offering Sensations Magazine at $20 as opposed to the usual $25, so you're getting a deal. And there's also many history books that we've put out on display, which you can check out, and there are more on the shelves. So we encourage you to buy the magazine, buy some books. If you know you won't be buying either, we just ask you to make a donation if you are able to. So I'm going to pass the bag around. There's some change in here. And then there's also a QR code on the back if you'd like to give through Venmo. Anyone watching online, if you'd like to make a donation, you can do that on Venmo at BGSQD, those 5 letters. So I'll pass this around. We have regular bookstore hours, Wednesdays through Sundays from 1 to 7 p.m. And then we often stay open later on weeknights for events. And our weekend events we usually host in the afternoon like this one. If you're not already on our email list and you would like to be, you can sign up for that at the back of the room, and you'll get an email every other Monday about our many upcoming events. So before I bring David up, I wanted to read a land acknowledgement. So the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. We encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community Houses Mannahatta Fund. The Mannahatta Fund, according to its website, is an invitation to all settlers and non-native people who wish to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at mannahattafund.org. The Bureau also recognizes Palestinian liberation as a queer issue, and we encourage you to read our flyer that's at the back of the room about why we think it's important for queer people to speak up in solidarity with Palestinians. So now I will introduce David. I didn't even ask you. Missineo. So let me ask you now. David Missineo is among the... Missineo.
Sin. There's a sin in there.
Missineo. Is among the 12 longest-serving poetry editors and literary magazine publishers still active in the United States. His print publication, Sensations Magazine, will celebrate its 40th anniversary of continuous operation in 2027. With no government grant funding, thank God, no university affiliation, and no paid advertising. David is a 3-time winner in the National American Literary Magazine Awards and received a 2009 New Jersey State Jefferson Award for public service from the governor's office for his literary publishing and research efforts. As a historian, David received the 2011 Dwyer Award for journalism and in New Jersey history for his research work published in this and other publications. David is the author of 12 published books, 11 of poetry, plus a novella, and lives in Northwest New Jersey. Today's focus will be sharing research and poetry published in the 2024 Sensations Magazine thematic supplement on the first century of the American Gay Rights Movement, 1924 to 2024, copies of which are available today at the Bureau for $20 apiece. Joining David on stage today will be poets published in this Sensations magazine, including Alida Adams, Joel Allegretti, Davidson Garrett, Stephen Koenig, each of whom will share some biographical info about themselves in the Q&A to follow the feature presentation. I will now turn the program over to David and his fellow poets. Please give them all a very warm welcome.
My name is David Vicinio. As he mentioned, this is Sensations Magazine, celebrating the first century of the American Gay Rights Movement, 1924 to 2024. This is the first reading for this issue in a prominent public venue. And I want to start by reading a little bit from the magazine itself to kind of give you an intro to how we got here. And then we're going to go through the 7 parts of the magazine as part of the reading. So you will probably hear 30 to 35 poems over the next hour or so by the 4 authors joining me, myself, and other people who will be representing who are not able to be here today. So starting off, this is from the message from the publisher that opens the magazine. Yes, the American Gay Rights Movement has reached its 100-year mark. The poets associated with Sensations Magazine and the historian leading them all have chosen this subject for our 2024 Poetry and Research Deep Dive. There are 82 poems from 28 poets in this Sensations Magazine, zeroing in on moments of note within the context of gay American history. While I use the traditional word gay here, this document does offer you a more inclusive than many LGBTQ plus history, with each of those 6 represented here in some fashion or another. The LGBTQ plus American History Timeline, 1924 to 2024, which is 25 pages of the 44-page publication, offers a unique contribution to LGBTQ plus studies. As stated earlier, it is both the first published document to break gay American history into 600 data points, DPs, aka moments of interest across a 100-year period, and the first to cite 1924 to 2024 specifically as, quote unquote, the first century of the American Gay Rights Movement. It takes a broader view of movement by including key moments of political progress and setbacks, while also zeroing in on private acts, example, setting up a house together as a gay or lesbian couple in the 1920s to 1960s, and the influences of books, films, music, television, and theater upon public perception of LGBTQ plus people. The timeline explores how collectively these moments have moved the needle of progress and acceptance both legally and socially. This novel approach results in a roadmap for future historians and researchers, as well as a crash course in American LGBTQ plus history for my magazine readership. Each one of the 600 data points should be viewed as a story worthy of your further exploration. Now, even though the gay rights movement as such didn't start until 1924, obviously there were gay and lesbian people here in the United States prior to that. The first time in world history that we had people self-classifying as homosexual was around 1867. So you're dealing with a movement that kind of started in Europe and then gradually worked its way over into the United States. If you go back into the earlier time period, the Oscar Wilde trial was a big deal on both sides of the pond, leading to kind of this reign of terror with people being afraid their correspondence was going to be discovered, that they could be put on trial as well. So it led to a significant, what you would call self-suppression that went on for a number of years. Now here in New York City, You had things going on as active as early as the 1850s and 1860s. You had a PAFS, which was a bar in the Bowery that Walt Whitman and others frequented. So that could be considered one of your early gathering spots for this group of people. But as we go through this, I'm going to share you a few of the data points from the timeline, not a lot, but we're going to go through the sequence chronologically. So we'll sequence through the 7 parts of the magazine, and we'll talk about, some of the discoveries that I had that basically rewrite our concept in 2025 of what gay American history actually was. So this document is very different because I'm a non-academic historian. I don't have to report to government or get a grant or be involved with many of the other groups that are well respected and whose hard work led to much of the findings that are in here. So what I presented is not really anything new, except the way in which it's presented is entirely different, and the way in which we're framing it is completely different as well. And a lot of this stuff, even though it's been around in different places, it's never been distilled and brought together into one location before. So basically, if you purchase this magazine today, you get a one-stop shopping of 100 years of American history that is likely stuff that hasn't been taught in schools. It certainly is something you will not be able to purchase and see taught in Texas or Florida or some other locations, including possibly some around the world. It's my understanding that through this live YouTube live stream, we have people possibly watching this from as far as Brazil and the Philippines. So hello, if you're from those countries, and thank you for coming. So alluding to this earlier period prior to 1920, I want to bring up Stephen Koenig to read his poem Nodle, which covers the two-spirit people. So, Stephen?
Is that in the book?
It's in the book in the back.
Sorry, finding things in your own book. It's tricky. Okay, Nodle is the Navajo word for double-spirited person.
Just be sure you use one of the 2 mics.
Okay, so Nodle is the Navajo word for double-spirited person, and this takes place in the early 1900s when Indians were forced to go to schools on the reservation, then they were taken away to be Americanized and others. Nodle, this is for the Nodle taken from the Carlisle Indian School. I hadn't known the veil would be lifted. I hadn't known the protection was gone. When they took me to the school, the girls were kept apart. We were taught to be like the women. We were taught to be apart. I kept my place. I kept my place. The girls protected me. I wore my clothes like my sisters. I was placed, taught to be like the women, to take my place. In the boarding school, to take my place. I'm not sure where I am now. I don't know where I've gone. The journey is dark. My cousins are gone. They took me from the school. My cousins were crying. I don't know where I'm going. They tried to protect me, but they scrubbed all the girls and they saw. I don't know where I'm going. My hair is short and my suit of clothes ripped. I don't know where I'm going. I heard my cousin screaming, "Mister, bring her back!" But I know I won't be back. I don't know if they'll hurt me. I know I won't be back.
Many of Steve's poems were published in other issues of Sensations magazine, and he's got 2 new ones that are going to be added in as part of this program that are relevant to the topic we're sharing today. So let's get to 1924. Part 1, Visibility to Vanishing, 1924 to 1934. Now that's an interesting subtitle. Why would I call it Visibility to Vanishing? Because in the 1920s, in New York City and in other cities, there was a highly visible group of people that were part of the pansy craze. These were often men who were wearing white makeup and lipstick and stuff, and they were pretty aggressive. They would go seek sexuality from a guy who's walking down Central Park West with his girlfriend, and they apparently were very good runners because they could run it very fast. The guy didn't like the thing. So, and we're talking thousands of people. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, where did all these people go? How did we get from 1924, 1930s, where you have thousands of people like this in New York City, to a point where in the 1940s, where you have the Mattachine Society and you have the Daughters of Bilitis saying it took us 2 years to find 8 people. Well, the way that we went from one to the other is, one, a letter J. Edgar Hoover sent out that went into all the newspapers that therefore empowered the police departments in all these different cities to suppress all of these people. And number 2, a decision by Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia to clean up things prior to the arrival of the World's Fair, that he banned anyone wearing drag or makeup from 14th Street to 72nd Street, and they started arresting people and arrested thousands of people. And basically, it so suppressed what was going on in New York City at the time that a visitor who had been in Manhattan in the 1930s and came back in the 1940s commented on having seen how much, where did these people that I used to see in all these neighborhoods go? And that comment made it into the books of one of the historians. I think it may have been in George Chauncey's book. I'm not sure if it was him or another person. But that was kind of the dynamic of what was going on. So our journey here starts off with 1924, and we start with Friendship and Freedom magazine, 1924. This is my poem in memory of Henry Gerber, founder of the Society for Individual Rights, Chicago, Illinois, the first gay rights group approved for incorporation in the United States and America. He received the approval papers Christmas Eve, 1924. Illinois issues a charter, a starter to barter into paid memberships. I'll start typing a newsletter called Friendship and Freedom this Christmas Eve. No better way to spread word. Write, publish 2 issues. No plan to be martyr. Just dedicate my energy to a principle of fairness. Full, true equality belongs to women who love women, men who love men, queers. But America would boot stamp my cause to oblivion for a full 25 years, and local police toe the FBI line, threat to national security. Now, as I mentioned, also in the 1920s, you have this high visibility going on that was carried over from Germany. So what people are seeing in books, in films, in cabaret, in theater, are all relevant in silent movies. So the pansy craze kind of came out of what people were seeing and mimicking in film. And then, of course, by 1934, the Hays Code comes, shuts all that off for almost 30 years. And that brings us into what will be part 2 of the magazine. So sticking with this period of 1924 to 1934, Visibility to Vanishing, I'd like to bring up Alida Adams next to read her poem, The Sepia Star Speaks, Gladys Bentley, 1907 to 1960. And then following her will be Davidson Garrett doing Band Art, and then Joel Allegretti will come up next with William Haynes.
Hi, everybody. I had never heard of Gladys Bentley until David said, write a poem about her. And I called the poem The Sepia Star Speaks. And she lived from 1907 to 1960. You've never heard of me, you say? Oh, I was famous long ago. In 1925, age 16, left troubled home, hostile family. Philadelphia, joined New York Harlem Renaissance. In Prohibition, I played speakeasies at Harry Hansberry's Clam House. Became a hit as Bobby Minton, dressed up in white top, hat, and tails. I'm sorry, I have a hard time reading because of my eyesight. Although David printed this for me. Played piano nonstop every night. Loved bluesy growl of dirty words. Risque lyrics set to Broadway tunes. Gentlemen tapped, ladies swooned. I entertained them all. Star of Harlem, brown bomber of sophisticated songs. I sang of sissies and bulldaggers. Voice deep and high, body big and dark. I married men. I married women. This poem cannot contain me. And if you want to see or hear Gladys Bentley, you can on YouTube. So she was quite the lady.
Good afternoon, all. My name's Davidson Garrett, as David announced. Band Art, 1934. Perhaps it was the cartoonish characters cavorting together in Riverside Park, muscled sailors on leave showing off bubble butts in uniforms, or the streetwalker floozies attempting seduction, while a fairy-like male sweetly observes in a gray suit and red tie, catching one Navy man's eye, offering him a dainty cigarette. But this commissioned WPA painting, titled The Fleet's Inn, ordered removed from exhibition at Washington's Corcoran Gallery by Naval Admiral Hugh Rodman, incensed that this work of art misrepresented the wholesome American hero military look with codes of homoerotic subtext. Newspapers across the country published black and white reprints of this scandalous debauchery, assuring the New Deal artist, Paul Cadmus, much national fame. As a short coda, I had a very well-known friend who was a sculptor, and he invited me one afternoon to his loft for coffee. And when I was there, the doorbell rang, and he said, "I want you to meet a friend of mine." And in walked Paul Cadmus. So I got to have coffee with Paul Cadmus, and I cherish that memory. Thank you.
Where is it? Oh, there I am, sorry. Hi, I'm Joel Allegretti. William Haynes, 1900 to 1973. I, in the Hollywood of Fairbanks and Barrymore, was a figurative Stonewall riot. Unwilling to live a lavender life, this leading man met Jimmy Shields and reserved fiction for lights, camera, action. I, in 1930, not John, not Lionel, not swashbuckler Douglas, was America's top male matinee idol. Still, Louis B. Mayer handed me a choice: acquire a wedding ring or be the me that I was. I chose the me. I, in 1934, made my exit. Oh, how divinely droll a final bow. In his I bid thee farewell role, this queen plays a U.S. Marine.
Representing the first of our poets who could not be with us today. This is a poem by Vincent Morano, and this will be the last one presented for part one. Being invisible while being seen. Wiki knows you so well, prissy but polite, so often flustered and fastidious, yet elegant, trusted and erudite, nervous, still so oddly officious. Never ever a threat, you made things work, kept up appearances, was front of house. You were ever the foil for the drunk or jerk and suffered the fool, the ass, the louse. We shared the same birthday, my dear Franklin. Like you, the bright lights drew me out a bit, but you remained obscured and hidden in the background. You were softly lit. Your face and name, a portmanteau of grief, pangborn, so apropos, a fairy in relief. This is what the timeline looks like. That's data points 1 through 45. So imagine there's 2-page spreads throughout the magazine as we go through the 7 parts with all this information packed in. And I'm going to read you this data point, which tells us what happened with our friend from 1924. After 7 months of operation, the Society for Individual Rights is shut down by the Chicago police, and Gerber and some of SIR's 8 other members are arrested and put through 3 trials in Chicago. Copies of the 2 issues of its Friendship and Freedom newsletter, both published in 1925, and all files and contacts are confiscated and or destroyed. Gerber's typewriter is returned to him, and some of this information comes out of a rather obscure TV documentary called Out of the Past, which I've been trying to find a copy of. It came out in Britain many years ago. For any of you who have seen it, it's absolutely wonderful. It looks at homosexuality in different centuries, and it talks about people who were here in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. They focused on 4 of them, and he was the focus for the 20th century portion of it. So now we go into part 2. Cafeteria Society Downtown to World War II Nation, 1925 to 1935. While New York City and other cities decide how to deal with the Pansy Brigade, the U.S. Armed Forces begin to ask all incoming men euphemistically if they like girls, or directly if they are homosexual. Implanting the idea there is something called homosexual across 18 million American teenagers and young adults in the 1940s, opening a door. From the data timeline, December 7th, 1941, this is what I wrote, and it kind of overlaps what you just heard. A day that will live in infamy, Pearl Harbor is bombed, and the U.S. Armed Forces begin to draft and individually screen 18 million men for possible service into World War II. His process includes military examiners asking each draftee, do you like girls, or the more blunt, are you a homosexual? Making the U.S. Armed Forces entrance screenings a primary vehicle for making innocent teenagers and older guys aware that A, there was such a thing as a homosexual, not common knowledge nationwide at the time. B, if one thought he was the only one, he was wrong. And C, there may be the chance to meet others like himself in the armed forces if he made it through the screening process. In spite of the screenings, thousands accepted and served. So let's look at that time period next. So we're gonna kind of backtrack a little bit to 1936. This is a poem I wrote called A Day in the Nightlife. And what it does is it captures a party in 1936 in Manhattan, and it also captures this cafeteria society thing that was going on late nights, 3 o'clock in the morning, where in a cafe, the Pansy Brigade and others would be gathered and acting out and stuff on one side of the room. And then the straight people would be kind of taking their tables and gawking at the other while ordering their waffles or their coffee or whatever was going on. So this is my creative attempt to kind of bring back what that pansy character person would have been like in that time period. That's one of the things that I do in my writing with American history. A Day in the Nightlife, 1936, 1. Hi, doll. Welcome to my raid party. They may take us to the station later in the Black Maria, so we better all celebrate now. Let me take your sable. Oh, darling, we need to fix you up. Gin, you look like something the Hindenburg dropped on its way across. Hello, of course, Benson and Hedges, take one. Charmed. Who are these people? Don't they have homes? Love this song, The Good Man is Hard to Find. No, just drop your cigs on the floor with the gin bottles. Yeah, just rooming, $10 a week. Owner's son will clean it in the morning. 2. Life Cafeteria, 116th 7th Avenue South, New York City. A glass of wine for 15 cents. Ugh. But apple pie and a whole wheat crust, delish. Yes, we'll go to Child's Paramount later and camp all night. Look, I don't care what Mayor Fifi does. Arrest thousands here on 14th, 42nd, on Riverside. Sissies, pansies, we horticulture boys bring the color to this city. Without us, it's just gray suits and smoke gray skies. Let them gawk. We're not going anywhere. But they did go somewhere. They all were forcibly disappeared. Joel, you're next.
U.S. Army private discharged for homosexuality, 1944. I was the type life writers and photographers lived for. Blue-eyed Indiana farm boy, body honed by sweaty days, baling hay, mending fences. Loved mom, loved America, proud to serve. If the Nazis didn't kill me, I'd go back to the family acres, or maybe earn a degree in business, thanks to new legislation. But in the psychiatric ward that replaced my barracks, there was no GI Bill to pay for Indiana State University, no USO shows with Bob Bing and Lauren Bacall, no rockets red glare, no amber waves of grain.
Part 3, Finding Ourselves, Finding Each Other, 1946 to 1969. Now, just a poll. I explained to you what was the first gay rights group in America. What do you think was the second? What was the second gay rights group in America? Mad Jordan, wrong. 1948 to 1954. From the timeline. 4 honorably discharged gay veterans file articles of incorporation in the state of New York and create the second gay rights group in America, the Metropolitan Veterans Benevolent Association, operating until 1954. They assist gay veterans in employment, legal, and military issues. Quote, it's 75 to 100 members regularly for social gatherings, attended by as many as 400 or 500 additional guests, unquote. That quote is from the history book. The book is cited. You can find out who by buying the magazine. But I want to bring you to 1948. This is a poem I wrote called American Household, An American Household, 1948. This is a conjectured poem. So it's basically a character snapshot of a family, a mother, a daughter, and a son. And what's interesting about this poem is while the details are all accurate to the year 1948, this conceptually, with all the dynamics happening in the poem, 1948 is the first year that all of these things could actually have happened together in one household. An American Household, 1948. More tempting than Tupperware, the ladies whispered, though it was introduction to those plastic marvels that introduced her to something else, involved her in a secret trip to a bookstore in a far-flung town to secure the book she's secrets in the kitchen, working her way through to a series of shocking statistics. 37% of the total male population has had at least some overt homosexual experience. 50% of males who remain single until age 35 have had overt homosexual experience. 8% of males were exclusively homosexual for at least 3 years between the ages of 16 and 55. 4% of males were exclusively homosexual throughout their lives. She hadn't known the word or what it meant until reading her new book, Alfred C. Kinsey, 1948, Sexual Behavior in the American Male. She peers from the kitchen into the living room, considers her husband, the lump on the couch. Valentine beer in hand, watching professional wrestling on the Dumont Tower. Her husband, the lump on the couch, nurses his beer, broods over the disturbing letter he received earlier. They upgraded me from blue to honorable and the details. The Army Disciplinary Barracks at Greenhaven Federal, Stormville, New York. We all wore an A on our backs, like that girl in the scarlet letter. Okay, decent guy. Shipmate saved me in Normandy. Sorry someone ratted. War's over. Why write me this? Sick. I'm not going to reply. Sick. What does he want from me? Have a wife? Got a kid? I'm not like that. Startles his wife with his shout to her kitchen. Hey, do you know what is the scarlet letter? Gets back. I think it's a book. Why? And replies, nothing, never mind. Then returns to muscle on their Transvision 15-inch deluxe. Upstairs in his bedroom, their often sullen son unsheathes a brown paper wrapper, wonders if what he's heard is true, wonders if he's unlocked the secret code to finding himself, finding others like himself. The pull of item from wrapper, furtive, nervous, as wrapper unreels and the letters reveal. Gore Vidal, the city and the pillar. Next up, Joel Allegretti, then Davidson Garrett. Still in part 3.
Harry Hay, 1912 to 2002. The French name Matachine derives from the Italian name Matacino, which derives from the Arabic Mutavajihin, which means mask wearers, which we were impelled to be. Ordered by scripture, custom, and American law to regard daily life as a Halloween party only we were invited to attend, We awakened each day to don a costume of our choosing, such as confirmed bachelor, such as unfulfilled husband. In 1950, on the 11th day of November, I and my friends brought our society into being. It was time, we decided, to be, to fear the jail cell no longer, to live as the genuine Harry, Bob, Chuck, Dale, and Rudy, to leave masks and costumes to Batman and Green Lantern.
Caught with the goods in hand. August 26, 1956. Frank Comeny, closeted homosexual and Harvard-trained stargazer, on a business trip in San Francisco to attend astronomical conferences, heard of a hotspot tea room for anonymous male-gazing fun located in a mass transit restroom, where he spotted a handsome man cruising in an adjacent urinal, enticing Frank to sensually touch the gentleman's dangling penis, but soon nabbed by a vice squad spying from behind a ventilator, arresting both for lewd behavior, creating permanent police records, and killing prospects for future work with federal government agencies or academic teaching positions, which propelled the astronomer seized in the so-called crude act to begin an enlightened vocation, co-founding Mattachine, Washington, D.C., and thus dedicating his adult life championing gay rights activism.
What was the first significant public gay protest in the United States? Significant public gathering of gay people?
DC.
Well, what year?
Yeah.
1970.
Okay, people think of 1970 Central Park, maybe after Stonewall. It's not Stonewall, so let's go back to the timeline. The first major public gathering, aside from the benevolent associations, which were private gatherings up to 500 people, is this one. Data point number 150, 1959 to 1960. Gay men start weekly Saturday promenades on weekends on the west sidewalk of Greenwich Avenue between 6th and 7th Avenues and the east sidewalk of 3rd Avenue between 50th and 60th Streets as a public visibility response to the New York City closing of all gay bars that winter. According to Andrew Trimmingham of Devon, England, quote, thousands of gay men cruised one another in these locations, stopping their strolling at any convenient shop window to give an opportunity for the object of their interest to share the window and strike up a conversation. I met my first lover just that way in the spring of 1960 on 3rd Avenue, unquote. The source of that is cited in here, and you can buy the magazine and find out who it is. Now, we have one more poem to fit this pre-Stonewall era. I'd like to bring Steve Koenig up to read one of his poems that is not in this magazine, but was previously in Sensations magazine, which brings us to the end of the 1960s era prior to Stonewall.
Which one is it? Dear Batman. Dear Batman, it's time to let you know that Alfred won't keep our secret. Sliding up the bat pole won't allay it. Like Sal Mineo to James Dean, I followed your path and elevated you to my beck and call. It's been difficult, The bat rope can't tie you. The cave is too cold. I've had it with this life of crime. The Riddler's question was in his pants. The Joker was your wild card. Let me take off the mask, that black leather, the ear holes, the eye holes, and scan you down and up the way the Batlight does Gotham's skyline, a sign.
I'm gonna have you read this one. And we are now on part 4, Stonewall and the Sexual Revolution, 1969 through 1980. This poem is by Zant Wintrees and Sheldrake Lucas, and it's titled The Stone Wall.
Okay, this is a cold reading, so bear with me. The stone wall, anger simmered off the asphalt, off the sidewalk, into their queendom, outraged, out the doors, out their pores poured anger upon them, the established kingdom, into the outing, revealing their faces unmasked neath makeup, showing off their paces, affronted dark knights armed with batons and maces amidst the tumult of bully pulpit chases. Resolute, braver, never did waver, risking limb and lives no blue wall could contain. Their stone wall survived, and that legacy remains. They swung wrists and fists that shocked and amazed. Swing into history did they, and set it ablaze.
You can sit. Oh, wait, no, you can't. No, actually, Joel, you come up next, and then I'm gonna bring you back up. Gilbert Baker. Do you need help with this? Which one? Gilbert Baker?
Definitely.
This poem is about the maker of the gay flag that Joel wrote, and I'll be joining him on this poem.
Gilbert Baker, 1951 to 2017. The Nazi triangle had to go.
Hot pink stood for sex.
We needed to revel in light,
Red stood for life.
not redefine darkness.
Orange stood for healing.
To rise from shame to shine.
Yellow stood for sunlight.
I remember the sky's gift.
Green stood for nature.
After a rainfall, so I sewed.
Turquoise stood for magic.
Needle, thread, and fabric
Indigo stood for serenity.
celebrated the uncelebrated.
Violet stood for spirit.
I pictured the sky smiling.
Next, I'm bringing Steve up to read his poem, Inferno.
Okay, excuse me. I wrote this while I was a reporter for the short-lived Gays Week, which got sued by Newsweek for copyright infringement. True. Inferno, excuse me, Inferno. And you did feel it, hot from the walls. It was all over you, a hand under each arm, another lifting from behind, until it licked around the ceiling, consumed into the hole. Down 26th Street, there was a flame, and like any good reporter, I know smoke goes with danger. We run back to the office, phoned our friends for wreath money. 23 died in the bath fire. At the benefit dance, we spun for dead Jimmy Stewart, dead, blackened in ecstatic undulation, playing Inferno, a bad joke, flaming, the cut he lived for. On the news, 1968, a truck holds 2 boys in the hold, legs dangling, hands entwined, so that's what they look like. Our anthem was stolen when the Bensonhurst boys sang Inferno. It It was burn, baby, burn, but they only felt it on accent, octane, and flash. And we did feel it all over. It rumbled volcanic. The firehouse ignited the charge, a lick in the right place, a hand under each arm uplifting, a phone call to friends. They died in the flames. It's for the patrons of the Everard Baths and to Alan and the Gays Week staff.
Joel Allegretti next, followed by Davidson Garrett.
This poem is in the voice of a fictional character. David asked me if I could write a poem inspired by a two-part episode of All in the Family called Edith's Crisis of Faith. It involved the last appearance of a moderately recurring character named Beverly LaSalle, a female impersonator portrayed by a real female impersonator named Laurie Shannon. And in this particular episode, Beverly LaSalle visits the Bunkers. She's going to make her debut at Carnegie Hall, and the Bunkers and the Stidicks are going to be her guests. She wants them to be her guests. Beverly goes out to get a cab. She's attacked and beaten. She dies. Edith is devastated because she loved Beverly, and she says, how could God allow this to happen? She doesn't want to go to church anymore. She doesn't want to celebrate Christmas. Beverly LaSalle, 1977. Sweetest Edith, I'm writing this note on the queen's sky above your house. Don't fret. Don't ask why. The punks who spilled my drag star blood sent me to a designer paradise. I belt out America to the seraphim. May and Judy think of me as a peer. And St. Peter knows the words to all the songs from Annie, Get Your Gun.
Most of my poems in the issue are all based on historical research. This one poem of mine is what you might title as a confessional form of poetry. Southern Gay Foyer, 1969. Unexplained teenage lust within unleashes Christian guilt and shame. Parking my car downtown on Sunday afternoon in Shreveport to browse Gilmore's newsstand, a scrappy hole-in-the-wall store ostensibly selling newspapers and gossipy Hollywood tabloids. The namesake owner slyly smiles behind the lone cash register as I embarrassingly slink inside, heading to a rack by the back wall where an array of dirty magazines feature nude women on slick covers looking like sex kittens meowing. I sneak a peek at young physique with erotic photos of muscled men wearing only skimpy jockstraps, their Herculean bodies a feast for my closeted adolescent eyes. Weeks after my clandestine visit, police raid this local establishment, arresting unsuspecting Mr. Gilmore, accused of breaking obscenity laws.
So we have two more in this section. This first one is by Joanne Santiglia, titled Cherry Cream Pie Tells All. I remember as if it were yesterday. When I landed smack dab on your mug, I recall you burst into tears, then started phony praying. Did you deserve the humiliation? Does any clown or school kid? Who knows? After all, I'm just the pie. Did I deserve the humiliation? But you lost your booking agent, OJ commercial, filed for bankruptcy, ended up divorced. I'm not interested in the after story of the one I pied in Des Moines. But I do wonder, 47 years later, if being more open-minded, showing some compassion, might have served you a little better, preserved a nicer place for you in the historical record, in the pie chart of your life. For Anita Bryant. And this is my poem, As the Worm Turns, at the Saint, 1980. I don't know if it was, I think it was 1980. The early bird gets the worm. Well, it's 6 a.m. and all us worms are dancing under a star-world sky looking for that special bird. Our sky is just a cheap effect created by a man-made machine. There was a time when I felt human, but that was many men ago. In our pseudo-star sky, it's hard to tell the difference between worms and birds until we face off, do the dance, beak to body, eye to eye. Now I'm being taken under wing and being pecked. Am I this? Am I that? And swallowed until I am one with you. And now I'll know what it is to fly. Seven parts in the magazine. We are up to part 5, from AIDS to Ajita, 1981 to 1998. Joel, you'll be the opening poet. Davidson will follow. Davidson, you're going to stay up to read Galen's poem as well.
New York City AIDS victim, mid to late 1980s. A bank teller, a newspaper man, an associate in accounts payable, a cabaret singer, a deli worker, a maitre d', a waiter, a dancer, an East Village artist, a cellist, a clerk in a bookstore, an actor, a denizen of the leather bars, a hustler on 9th Avenue. I was all of them, and all of us are dead. I died in St. Clair's, and I died in my home. In St. Vincent's and Bellevue, in Harlem Medical Center. Wherever I died alone. I, whose body went unclaimed, ferried to the Potter's Field on Hart Island, Long Island Sound. I, the leper of the 5 boroughs, buried by anxious gravediggers, disposable jumpsuits, their armor. I, whose number was an estimate, discarded in a remote cemetery, which didn't even have a name.
I lived at the McBurney YMCA for 22 years at 23rd and 7th Avenue in Chelsea. And the poem that I'm going to share with you is something that I observed firsthand living during that era. This is what we call a linked haiku. Only the famous made headlines. SRO Hotels, late 1980s Chelsea, shelter those with AIDS. Gays, straights, transgenders, broke and evicted from homes, endure pain alone. corralling these souls, cities scrambled solution, healthcare minimal. Black, brown, white faces, wrecked livers from AZT, bodies skeletal. Last gasp in grim rooms, anonymous to neighbors, corpses hauled to morgue, cadavers in fridge, estranged kin refuse to claim, shipped to Heart's Island. We have another poem here, yeah, we go. I'm honored to read the next poet's poem in the issue. I've known her for many years. Wonderful human being. Ode to Apurva by Galen Warden. Apurva was a revelation, a prince. Back in India, he wasn't allowed to touch his dishes or return to his room after breakfast until a servant had changed his bed to daytime sheets. Apurva came to America to be an engineer named Paul, and to be free his natural biology with unencumbered love, writing many excuses home to thwart repeated marriage arrangements. I was thrilled to be invited when Paul's family came from India and threw a party. Seeing Paul wrapped in familial adoration and his Anthony generously embraced, I did not know this was just the beginning of a long goodbye. Ode to Apurva, Galen Warden.
This is by a poet named Suzanne Julie Post. Act Up, Fight Back, Fight AIDS. In those early days of confusion and loss, contrary to the vitality, freedom, and life that teased us into bars and theaters for hands full of stubble and breath, we organized and chanted. 1,500 cracked and ravaged voices raising banners in the air for life, justice, fairness, the Holy Grail. No silence. No shame. Yanked from our tortured lives, we hold you to blame for waging our hope in corporate charts and profits, till on one brisk October day, wrapped in human caution tape, we surround the building, demand treatment, AZT. Boroughs unwelcome, but you have the drug, we begged. Nothing like a good spectacle to disrupt a workday, Gandhi style. Hey, FDA, how many have you killed today? Our families, frightened, don't want to see us anymore. Friends, dying, in a state of aloneness not even the devil can bear. We are the architects, composers, designers, critics, and saints. Did you think that dying was enough? Next, we're going to hear from the voices of two poets who have passed away. The first is Leander Scope, who was a poet associated with us for a long time. He was also a manager of the Different Light bookstore in New York City for a few years. Joel, I'm going to have him read Leander's poem, No Hero in the Rain.
No Hero in the Rain by Leander Scope. The angels cry in communal tears, and I, just like the apple blossoms, resist their gift of cold caresses. It is May. the month of the Virgin's birth, and spring, which comes as welcome as a kiss on an old maiden's breast, this year comes as uninvited as the parson's wife. I know this is so because of the rain, angels' tears, the nuns would say, so that we should mind the rain. What sorrow provokes the angels so? What sin committed grieves them now? We do not know and never will, but I will propose, with my hand as steady and open as apple blossom. The tears that fall from each eye fall from Michael, Michael, Michael.
The other poet who will be representing in this was a New York City poet named Dean Costos. We received permission from Dean's literary executor, his brother, to run this poem in the magazine. This is titled In His Name for Matthew Shepard by Dean Costos. The speakers throb with red music. He will fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. What do you want? Where can we go? He did not create a chaos. They gunned the engine, wind whipping black as they sped, and asked for the ancient paths where the good way lies and walk in it. Past corn and wheat and barley fields to a threshing floor, fists pummeled his frame, hands hammered a pistol butt into his skull, jeers stabbed the air, his face collapsing on their rage. Prosper the works of hands. With arms roped cruciform to a rail, with legs spread eagled, he torqued and fell limp. While the pupil dark sky loomed in witness, the light of his body dimmed. And all of us with unveiled eyes seeing the glory of the Lord as though reflected in a mirror are being transformed into the same image. Breath wheezed through swollen nostrils and lips. All identity crushed, but his name. For Matthew Shepard. I next want to bring up Steve Koenig to read a poem not in the magazine titled Only the Second Poem for Greg.
Okay. Only this, let me do the mic, my height. Okay. Thanks. Only the second poem for Greg. Over so many years, and I guess we're together, even though we weren't together for more than a few months. We made crazy happy lovers, and after, crazy happy friends. The mornings we were together, my eyes lacked you when I awakened. I smelled the coffee, smelled the cigarettes, and I knew we were still together, just on different floors. You downstairs in the kitchen with Mom smoking and sipping and having a laugh, while in my bed I moaned from exhaustion and cuddled with my pillow, knowing you were together, safe. Together with friends as we were when we first met, we walked the full stretch of Christopher Street. At the march, this was before it became a corporate parade, getting separated by the crowd, jostled by the flow. Yet I meandered towards a kissing booth set up by GMHC to show you weren't afraid of kissing people with AIDS. No one remembers anymore when those letters stood for Gay Men's Health Clinic, where a different Greg swabbed me to check for STDs. These were the days when the means of transmission were just starting to be known, and it took all the courage I had, excuse me, but I had to. Okay, it took all the courage I had, but I had to have it to put my lips together and the hunk behind the table of the GMHC kissing booth. Maybe it was a peck on the cheek, who's to remember, but I was very anxious. The last time I saw you, not counting the open casket, was at my roof party in my bedroom, in my bed, shivering under the sheets. An hour before, you were outside on the chaise, chatting with Mom. If you had known this would happen, would you have had as much sex and drugs? more you laughed without hesitation, and you're with me now, and every time there's a joint of whatever kind in my mouth.
This is the last poem in this section. So, in this time period to the 1990s, most of my poets chose to write poems about people who have passed away from AIDS, as you could sense from what you have heard. And usually when people submit the work, I do the backfill, like, okay, if they didn't cover something, then it's my obligation to write the poem to cover it. So since they covered all that, I had to cover in one poem, and I had room for a sonnet, everything else that happened in the 1990s that was of relevance. So in 14 lines, here's the rest of the decade. The Gay 90s, a sonnet. Our decade starts by outing Malcolm Forbes, shades of McCarthy in a Cigna reel, Empire State awash in purple orbs, 100,000 AIDS deaths as we feel, Pryor and the Angel duke it out, refrigerator slam, battle royale, the startling violence in the staged bout, a shell-shocked audience. We all cry foul when Bill C. signs don't ask, don't tell to law, when Matthew dies alone upon barbed wire. Ellen, Will, and Grace for fun, but saw RuPaul and Milton Berle in fine attire torch each other viciously on stage. Then Corpus Christi, fanning Christian rage. We are at the last two parts, and part 6 and part 7 are going to segue one right into the other. So part 6 is the Road to Victory, 1999 to 2015. Part 7 is American Backlash, 2016 to 2024. From the intro to part 6. Gay and lesbian couples gain the legal right to marry, to have their marriages recognized in all 50 states, and gain all the equal state and federal benefits that straight couples have enjoyed for decades. Meanwhile, the U.S. Armed Forces allow gay, lesbian, and transgendered individuals to serve openly in another historic first. While many in the U.S. are far from pleased with these outcomes and make their unhappiness increasingly known, millions of LGBTQ+ individuals live their lives and savor these rare legal victories. This is my poem titled My Contribution to American Gay History. My contribution to gay American history. This is a true story. Sunday, May 1st, 2005, Equality Freedom, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Frank Kameny and Barbara Giddings conclude remarks. Frank puts papers into his briefcase, comes off the dais, and I speak with the legend directly. Ask if he still has the protest signs they held up in the 1960s, suggest they march with the same signs today. He is polite, but sighs, we're too old to march now, and some of us are gone. I offer a different idea. Why don't you donate the signs to the Smithsonian? Do you think they would want them? Want them? Are you kidding? I reply. Those signs are an iconic part of gay American history. I think they're in the attic, maybe the garage, he says. I see his wheels turning. He smiles, shakes my hand. That's a great idea. From the Washington Blade, October 6, 2006, quote, the Smithsonian Institution's Museum of American History has accepted a collection of 1960s-era protest and picket signs from the Kameny collection that Kameny and his supporters used for the nation's first ever gay rights demonstrations in front of the White House, unquote. Meaning that if you go to the Smithsonian, and if Donald Trump doesn't destroy them, the signs are still there, and I'm the reason why. Thank you very much. Did I assign Barbara Hall's poem to one of the other poets? No, okay. Steve, I'm gonna bring you up to read this one. It's titled Brokeback.
Brokeback, God, my throat. Brokeback by Barbara D. Hall. And let me bring it closer to my eyeballs. Okay, endless winds swept the screen. Brokeback Mountain set the scene as Annis and Twist tended sheep. Stars and moonlight brightly sweep. Lonesome lovers soon held tight. A keepsake of emotions forbidden didn't ease fear of public disgrace. Feeling awakened in the mountain, a heartbreaking story burst open, couldn't survive in the valley.
Okay, next up, Davidson Garrett.
Jack Phillips explains to customers, Lakewood, Colorado, 2012. Craig and Charlie, I'll not mince words. Masterpiece Cake Shop, my company, specializes in custom designs, making special events special. I bake mouth-watering confections for birthdays and wedding receptions, eliciting much five-star praise. Buttercream, chocolate, coconut. My pastry is a work of sculpted art, bringing joy to landmark occasions. You both may readily purchase delectables in the display case, but as far as gay-themed request, I will never, ever decorate rainbow cakes honoring same-sex marriage because my faith is pure Christian, and I won't cater to hell-bound gents dissing biblical laws of Leviticus. For men who dare lie with men, celebrating with family or friends, nuptials from back east, remember it's illegal in Colorado, and God dictates I must not comply. So why not give Walmart a try? I wanted to just follow up on this. Craig and Charlie sued Masterpiece Cake Shop, and the appeals court of Colorado granted in their favor. Jack Phillips decided to get a lawyer and fight it, and he took it to the United States Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court told Jack Phillips that he did not have to sell his rainbow cakes to gay-themed weddings. So our lovely Supreme Court messed us up again. Thank you.
Joel, can you come up? We're going to go right from one to the other. So this is the last poem to present in part 6, and then we go right into part 7, American Backlash 2016 to 2024. Joel is joining me presenting Susanna Rich's poem, After My Own. This is the way that we presented it at the magazine debut in Lafayette, New Jersey a few months ago. This is my poem, The Taste of Victory. June 29th, 2014, Lafayette, New Jersey. The taste of victory is the taste of green tea cake in my mouth after my wedding. I removed the yellow rose from my suit pocket and beamed. I knew this day would happen someday. I just didn't think someday would take us 23 years. For the first time ever, if we vacation in any state, if something happens that lands one of us in a hospital, the other can visit because we are married, not in a civil union, not in a domestic partnership. That vicious don't ask, don't tell policy finally fell a few years ago. Another major win for the good side. Fred Phelps finally died. Lately, life has been pretty good, very good. We had the happiest day today, this long-awaited celebration with friends, the kind of day that is so good, it makes you feel the worst is over, feel nothing could possibly go wrong.
2016 Hate Crimes Against LGBTQ by Susanna Rich. February 15th, Martin Blackwell poured boiling water on Anthony Gooden and Marquez Tolbert while they slept. April 29th, in a secluded wildlife area, Kelly Schneider, 23, kicked Stephen Nelson, 49-year-old gay man, 30 times with steel-toed boots and left him to die in the cold. June 12th, Omar Mateen gunned down 92 at an Orlando gay nightclub. July 29th, 6 teenagers taunted Levi Frericks with homophobic slurs through blows at his head. August 11th, calling her the devil, James Allen Bird murdered Raylyn Thomas, 28-year-old transgender woman, in front of her mother. November 11th, Dana Rivers, a transgender woman, murdered Patricia Wright and Charlotte Reed, a lesbian couple, and their adult son.
And that was only a portion of what had happened in that year. Okay, I wrote a poem in this one titled A Life in Protest Chants. So we've got 3 protest chants from 3 different eras and an internet meme in the 2020s at the end. So this is kind of envisioning somebody who has spent their life protesting and how they might feel today with everything going on. A Life in Protest Chants. And the first 3 of these are real, by the way. They were actual chants that were used in these time periods. 1960s. 2, 4, 6, 8, gay is good, gay is great. 3, 5, 7, 9, lesbians are mighty fine. August 4th, 1977, Scarsdale, New York. Walensky, you liar, we'll set your house on fire. Gay power rules. 1990s. We're here, we're queer, get used to it. 2020s, internet meme. I'm old, I'm tired, get off my lawn. That's it. Okay. Barbara D. Hall wrote this poem, haiku, titled For the Snarling 20s. RGB passed, Roe v. Wade trashed, same sex next. And let's see, Steve, I want to bring you up for the O. Sibley poem. O'Shea Sibley, pardon me.
That's okay. This took place, thank you for the cough drop, it helps. Yeah, this took place in Brooklyn within the last 6 months, I believe. O'Shea Sibley, after Patricia Smith. Dear O'Shea, I always wanted to sparkle like a dancer too, since the projects, Dancing on the Terrace Alone, to Marvin's Grapevine, Edwin Starr's War, Stevie's exhilarating signed, sealed, delivered. But I did do my own, unable to follow the individual dances the blacks did seemingly without effort, although I know they practiced at home or in groups outside, stepping the steps and twirls as if playing double dutch. Older on 7th Avenue South, I told Matanya I couldn't dance, but he dragged me in saying, "It's so crowded, all you have to do is jump up and down in place." Shortly, I became a habitué of Keller's, the Cock Ring, Better Days, and the Ninth Circle. The piers became my dance clubs, and it wasn't dangerous dancing to our boom boxes after the bars closed at 4. Everyone was everyone's sister, and our music was not going to stop. The New York Times said after his murder, O'Shea Sibley's expression was turned into resistance after he refused to stop dancing outside his friend's car while filling up at the Coney Island Avenue gas station. He was stabbed voguing to Beyoncé, ending his professional dance and choreographing career, ending the hopes of so many young Black and white and beige men planning to dance in the open where all the world is your stage. O'Shea's ballroom category was Vogue Femme. And if you don't know it yet, being femme of any gender or style still leaves you open to or open by a knife. O'Shea's flower was blooming, dripping red sap on the sidewalks of Midwood. He was an adult man, 28, and my younger self still embodies the fears and fearlessness of the young and proud. The boys, for they were boys, at the center, voguing to Madonna's song, and for dessert, Jennifer Holliday's And I Tell You I'm Not Going. And I pray that those gay youth did not leave when threatened and claim the world as their stage, their home, their forever family, where they might not have had any other. I wish you could have stayed with your boys forever, but will always be your dancing partners.
I believe we're down to the last poem. So Davidson, would you come up and present the poem by David B. Prather from Virginia?
The Way Forward by David B. Prather. The governor mandates don't say gay in Florida. West Virginia introduces a House bill requiring schools to monitor bathroom use based upon biological sex. Gender transition is illegal in South Carolina for anyone under 18. And even though I still don't know who I am or what I've become, I recognize certainty in others. Funny how America tips one way, then another. A wobbly table with uneven legs. Dinner goes cold. Forks and knives clang to the floor. Glasses of water spill. And though I start to think this mess can't be cleaned up, someone grabs a dishcloth. Someone offers to gather what fell away. Someone says, "We won't go back." Thank you. This is The Way Forward by poet David B. Prather. Thank you.
And to conclude the program, data point 600, November 5th, 2024. Voters of the United States of America choose their 46th president. That choice will set the top-down tone for the United States in everything from LGBT rights and movement within the United States to our freedoms, directions, and position in the world. So the magazine concluded on Election Day 2024, and we apparently are in the continuation of the American backlash phase for at least the next 4 years. So, as Betty Davis once said, fasten your seatbelts, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Thank you all very much. Now, I first want to bring our poets up to talk a bit about themselves, a little bit biographically, just books you published, just a brief bit. And then we'll have a Q&A briefly for anyone who has questions about, for me or them or the magazine. So first up, Alita. You can just say a sentence about yourself and what books you published.
What books I published? I've been writing poetry since I was a child. And when Amazon started to allow people to self-publish, I was a graphic artist, and I decided I would publish my own books. And I have 4, one of which is an art and spirit book, because I'm also an interfaith minister who married David to his partner in 2014. And I was so touched when you talked about that. So I have 3 poetry chapbooks and one, as I said, art and spirit. It's called 52 Messages from My Creative Channel, because I believe we are all creative channels in one way or another. And it has 52 of my fine art collages, and then it has some spiritual stuff that goes with those pieces of art. And all of my books are designed and written by me. Beyond that, I've been a yoga teacher, I'm a singer. I believe that since we're all creative channels, I should try all my creative stuff. So I've spent my life doing that. And thank you very much for being here and hearing all of us.
Joanna Graham.
I have published 6 books and chapbooks of poetry. I published a novella called Our Dolphin, and I edited an anthology called Rabbit Ears TV Poems. David was one of the contributors, and in fact, we had a reading here for it back in 2016. I have a collection of short stories coming out this year. In fact, the publisher sent me a big layout, and I've been reviewing it. And I've published in various journals in the United States and overseas. Actually, Sensations Magazine was the first nationally available magazine that I appeared in.
So wonderful to be here today. Thanks for being such a great audience for our magazine issue. I'm originally, as you heard in one of my poems, from Shreveport, Louisiana. I left there when I was 19 years old to move to New York City to attend the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And I worked as an actor for several years, doing all kinds of things, bit parts in films, stand-in, I was in like 12 off-Broadway productions. I toured the United States in a puppet show. But it's a very difficult way to make a living, as most of you might know. So I had been writing poetry in my little room at the YMCA since I was a young man of about 24, 25. And I wanted to learn to become a better poet. So what I did is I came to the LGBT Center in the 1990s, and they had poetry workshops for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and I first started studying with the wonderful late, great Dean Costos. And we had a workshop that sort of traveled. After we left the center, we went to a different light bookstore, we went to people's apartments, but we became like a little community. And I still have a couple of friends from those days. I first was published in Sensations magazine in 2003, and I've been with David's magazine off and on for 20 years. I have 2 poetry collections. I was a New York City taxi driver for 40 years, off and on, and my first poetry collection is called King Lear of the Taxi, published by Advent Purple Press. And I had a recent full collection published by Kelsey Books titled Arias of a Rhapsodic Spirit. And 2 years ago, I had another chapbook published called Cabaletta by Finishing Line Press. I'm smiling, I'm looking at those 2 dear guys named Donnie and Greg. I was featured in their bookstore on Orchard Street around 2013. I had a chapbook called To Tell the Truth, I Wanted to Be Kitty Carlisle. And that was one of the first Manhattan readings I had in their wonderful bookshop. And I'm so proud of what they've accomplished. Let's give them a hand. Thank you all again for being here today and supporting David and his magazine. It's been great being here for me. Thanks.
Stephen King.
My voice is shot, so I think I'm Colleen Dewhurst, that's all. Yeah, I've been writing poetry since I was a young teenager in junior high. And I did an MFA in poetry, studying under Joan Larkin and John Ashbery and Douglas Craze, and even some straight writers. Really, it just turned out that way. Yeah, really good poets and encouraging people like William Matthews, and discouraging people like, well, we won't say his name. And so I did readings when this bookstore first opened on Orchard Street. They were kind enough to give me reading, even though I didn't have a book to sell. And so they couldn't get a profit from me. And I have one book out called Among the Powder that is about 15 or 20 years old already, quite sold out. And I'm working on getting it together to have another book put out. Thanks, David, for your encouragement always.
I want to give a special round of thank you to the Bureau of General Services Career Division for having us here today. I want to thank all of you in TV land for watching and experiencing this unusual program. In a time when we are being squeezed left, right, and sideways, and voices are being shut down and shuttered and oppressed, bringing us back to the very beginning of this program, spaces such as this become even more highly important than they were, even just a few years ago. So I strongly encourage you to support this space, to purchase books from this location. And I presume that people might be able to order books through you online or calling you or stuff like that. I can tell you, getting back to Sensations Magazine, that this is the only venue in the United States that is individually selling this publication currently. So if you want to get a copy of the thematic supplement on the first century of the American gay rights movement, this is the location where you would need to do that. And I encourage you to purchase copies today, whether for yourself or for friends. They are discounted to $20 today. They will jump to $25 tomorrow. So, and we only have 10 copies here. I have to bring them in from New Jersey. Can't even trust the post office anymore to mail them. So there's a whole lot involved with getting it here. So I wanted to quickly shift into a Q&A. I wanted to see if anyone had any questions either for me or for any of the individual poets about the magazine or about the history project or anything at all. If you do, just raise your hand and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Well, I guess we covered, you have one, okay, yes.
Well, I want to pose this in general to you and our presenters. Because of the time that we are in and what we are all facing, and particularly to our younger community members who may feel extra distress because this is new ground, new territory, how to get through it, because growing up as a teenager in the 80s and living through Reagan and Bush, in the 90s and AIDS and HIV, no social media, not even cell phones, and not even the internet. I think, what is your advice to those who are trying to navigate the uncertainty?
I can say, having lived a pretty long life, that this is the most concerning and disconcerting period that I believe I've been through in my lifetime in the United States. So I think as you get older, it gets easier for you to deal with the punches as they roll through. That's one thing that comes about through aging. But one of the stories, which I shared with one of you later on, and one of the things that kind of makes me keep going a little bit is I think about Germany in the thick of World War II. I think about 1943 and the people who were in the concentration camps and the death camps, and how in 1943 they saw the smoke rising and the people being rounded up and all these things happening and feeling that this was never ever going to end. And within 2 years, it was all over. So it's fair to say that the period that we're in is rough. It's going to be rough. It's probably going to get rougher, but things cycle around. And one thing I know, because I've been tracking American politics since Nixon. I remember being on TV watching his resignation in 1974, and I've cycled through all those different presidencies. And one thing I've seen about this nation is when it goes when it goes too far in one way, it boomerangs and goes back the other way. And while it feels like we're all in the middle getting whiplash from being bounced back and forth like a ping pong ball, that's what being in America is like. That's what being gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender or the Q or the I or the A is like in the United States all the time. All the time. And it's important to just, make it through the days. If you need to survive by tuning out the news media, by being on the phone less, screening out what you're getting on your Instagram and on your YouTube and all that other stuff. If you need to do those things for your self-care, if you need to shut off the phone and go out in nature and go what they call forest bathing, which is walking through the trees and stuff like that in Japan, you do it. You do what you need to do to make it through this period. Because as bad as it is and as bad as it will get, sooner or later, I believe it's going to shift around and get better. Now, I have one aside to put in. Some of you may have heard that there's been musings about the possibility, even though it's clearly not outlined it's clearly banned in the Constitution, not that that's going to stop a certain somebody, but there's discussion about going for a third term for the United States. The interesting thing is recently there's a new hashtag on social media that posits that idea of a third term for the United States presidency, and it's hashtag Obama 2028. So if the current president decides he wants to go for a third term, every other president who has had 2 terms is welcome to run for election.
George W.
Well, he's out painting. He doesn't care what's going on anymore.
Who knows?
So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. And definitely with the Instagram, with the YouTube, turn to the comedy videos. Do things that lighten up your life. Do things that bring you joy. That's my advice.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions about the publication, about Sensations Magazine, about the History Project? Anyone else? Okay, then I guess we will conclude the program. Again, I did want to mention that I had asked them to put a display together of other historians who have written and published books. So I alluded to some of them here, not Geoffrey Chaucer, George Chauncey is one. Alan Berube, who did a knockout book on gay men and lesbians in World War II, coming out under fire. Jeremy Soris did the first major book about Henry Gerber, our founder of the 1924 Society for Individual Rights. Jonathan Katz's book, Gay American History, is the prominent volume put out in 1976. Lillian Fatterman, another historian who put together an 800-page book or so. John D'Amelio, Martin Duberman, his book on Stonewall is considered one of the definitive books about that. Thank you. Yeah, Eric Cervini did The Deviants War, which is his book about Frank Kameny, wonderful book. And many of these were academics whose doctoral dissertation got converted to a book, and then some of them went beyond that. So Sensations Magazine is way outside of that field. It's academic in the sense of we did the research and we were grounded in that sense, but it's non-academic in the sense that the citations are different, that we're not affiliated with a university, and yet this research project is one of many that we've done with the magazine. We did poetry and research on global warming. We did poetry and research on westward expansion. The issue after this one was poetry and research on the theme of law. That was the one we did in 2025. And there's others coming in 2026 and 2027 when we get to the 40th anniversary of the publication. So on that note, I want to thank you all for attending. I want to thank all of you in TV land for taking part. It's now 4:57. We're 3 minutes early. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. As David mentioned, the magazine is back there, but also several history books that you can check out. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.